Well, the China threat rhetoric has morphed into a campaign issue in the U.S. midterm elections as the Democrats and Republicans jostle for control of Congress. CNA's Minmin speaks to businesses and analysts in China to find out how the results could impact Sino-U.S. ties.
The midterm elections will be closely watched in China, but with U.S.-China tensions at their highest since diplomatic relations began in 1979. Analysts are pessimistic about the future prospects of bilateral ties, whether it's in the geopolitical or security arena or in the area of trade. Observers say even if control of the U.S. Congress flips in the midterm elections, the strategic distrust between the two nations goes so deep that the change would hardly make a difference.
I think no matter the Democrats can keep the majority or the GOP can take back the House or the Senate, their China policy is similar. The only thing is they are fighting each other to show who is stronger towards China. So the general political ecology around the midterm election is unfavorable for China-US relations. We will have to see some intense situation relations in the coming 2 months.
The impact is being felt on the ground. David Lai runs a trading company exporting auto parts to the United States. His profit margins have been hit hard by the 25% tariffs imposed on Chinese exports to the US. Those tariffs are a legacy from the Trump administration, which President Joe Biden has kept in place since he took office.
25% is really a big hit because that costs us less competitive if we get from China. So that's the way where the prices definitely will go up. And that will affect, because some of my customers will move to elsewhere to buy outside China.
For him, diversifying his supply chain and finding ways to bypass those tariffs are matters of survival. And he fears the escalation of the Taiwan issue, the most fundamental difference rocking Sino-US ties now, could worsen the business climate for cross-border traders.
Definitely it will affect because there's interlink in that way, because they want to, like restrict certain products. Probably they might restrict some of our products going to USA. I don't know, this is policies that they will just suddenly pop up and we don't know what will happen next. I think right now I did the right thing. I moved to Vietnam, some of the products. I moved to India. So these are the places that I'm looking at right now.
But the worst affected sector will be the chips industry. China is heavily reliant on foreign companies for the most advanced technology. Analysts estimate that the country is still at least 3 decades away from catching up with leading players in the sector, and US efforts to cut off its access to imports threaten to become a choke point for China.
Since President Biden came into office, the focus of the United States seems to have shifted to high tech. For instance, the Chip 4 and Chip Alliance and the Chip and Science Act also want to build up the supply chain, excluding China, to guard against China. That will contain China and will also affect China's growth.
A survey of U.S. companies in China, conducted by the American Chamber of Commerce in March this year, showed that 56% of companies cited rising U.S.-China tensions as their top business challenge, followed by inconsistent regulation and rising labor costs, with U.S. politicians competing to be hawkish on China. Most businesses expect U.S.-China relations to stay the same or even deteriorate, regardless of the outcome of the midterm elections. Minmin, CNA, Beijing.